Bombshell in Chicago. It has sent the fans into a frenzy. No one expected this so soon, and the Chicago Cubs have just received news that could change the course of the season. But before I tell you all the details, Northside fans, make sure you hit that like button. Here you're always the first to get the latest Chicago Cubs updates. In the middle of the battle against the Kansas City Royals, the organization caught both fans and analysts completely off guard. Shelby Miller is officially back on the mound. The 35-year-old veteran, who has spent the 2026 season sidelined while recovering from a complex Tommy John surgery, has been activated and sent to AAA Iowa to begin his rehab outings. The road towards a potential return to the Major League roster has finally begun. But hold on, this does not mean Miller is already ready to return to Wrigley Field. This is only the first step in a process that will be closely monitored by the Cubs. Even so, the mere possibility of getting an experienced arm back for the final stretch of the season completely changes the picture for Craig Counsell. When Miller signed a $2.5 million contract with the Cubs, the deal appeared to be focused far more on 2027 than on making an immediate contribution in 2026. His surgery had essentially taken the veteran out of the plans for this season. Now, however, that story has taken a turn that very few people saw coming. Miller is beginning his comeback journey at precisely the moment when every arm could make a difference. The calendar is moving forward, the competition is getting tougher, and the pressure is rising. For a team dreaming of a postseason run, any internal reinforcement capable of bringing experience and confidence could make a massive difference. And this is where the story gets even more interesting. Miller needs to prove that his body has responded well to the surgery and, most importantly, regain command of his pitches. His stint with AAA Iowa will be used to evaluate his rhythm, control, velocity, and confidence. Every appearance will be another test to determine whether he can still compete at a high level. If the results are positive, the Cubs will have an option that very few fans imagined at this stage. A veteran who understands the pressure of the major leagues and could provide another weapon for the final stretch of the season. For months, Miller was essentially viewed as a bet on the future. Now there is a window for something much more ambitious, finding out whether he can return before the end of the season and contribute when the Cubs need him the most. That is why his return to AAA should not be treated as a mere formality. Every inning could provide an answer. If Miller shows that he can still execute his pitches effectively, the Cubs will have an important decision to make. Prepare him for the final stretch or preserve the veteran with 2027 exclusively in mind. The answer will depend on the numbers, his physical recovery, and most importantly, his performance throughout the rehab process. But one thing has already changed. Shelby Miller is back in the 2026 conversation. And that, by itself, is huge news. For Craig Counsell, the possibility of getting an experienced player back means more flexibility. For the front office, it represents a chance to turn an investment that appeared destined for the future into an unexpected contribution in the present. And for the fans, it means having another reason to believe this roster could gain an important piece without having to find one on the market. It is practically a homegrown reinforcement arriving at the most important possible moment. Of course, the excitement needs to be kept under control. Tommy John surgery is no small matter, and Miller's comeback needs to follow every step established by the medical staff and the organization. There is no guarantee that he will be ready for the postseason, nor any certainty that his performance in AAA will be enough to convince the Cubs to promote him. But now there is a real possibility. And that is exactly what no one expected to see this soon. While the fans' attention remains focused on the battle against the Royals and the race for the postseason, a new story has begun inside the organization. Shelby Miller is back on the road to the mound. After months of recovery, the veteran finally has the opportunity to prove that he can still write an important chapter in a Cubs uniform. Now I want to hear from every Northside fan. If Shelby Miller gets back to his best and is healthy before the postseason, would you put this veteran on the roster for the biggest games? Because what looked like a contract designed primarily with 2027 in mind could end up becoming one of the most unexpected reinforcements of the entire 2026 season. And now I want to hear your honest opinion, Cubs fans. Do you think Shelby Miller could actually change the dynamic of our team? Would you like to see him pitching in the upcoming games? Yes or no? I want to see what Cubs fans are thinking about this situation. Drop your answer in the comments below and stay tuned to the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss everything that happens between now and the end of the season. And if the news about Shelby Miller had already put Chicago Cubs fans on high alert, what happened next brought another tense moment to the North Side. Because while the organization begins to gain a potential new weapon for the final stretch of the season, another one of its key players caught everyone's attention precisely because he was not in his usual position. Crow Armstrong was out of center field for 2 consecutive games against the Royals, and that immediately raised a question among fans. Was there a physical issue with one of the biggest stars on the roster? Fortunately, Craig Counsell's explanation brought enormous relief, and revealed an important strategic decision by the Cubs. Craig Counsell explained the situation and delivered the news everyone in Chicago wanted to hear. There is no indication of a serious injury keeping Crow Armstrong out of center field. The decision was strategic, with the main goal of protecting the player after his physical workload had reached an extreme level. And there is a very important reason behind it. The Cubs had been going through a genuine marathon. They had played 17 consecutive games without a day off, a stretch capable of taking a huge toll on any player, especially someone like PCA who carries an enormous physical workload in every game. It's not just about offense. Crow Armstrong has to cover huge areas of the outfield, run at high intensity, react quickly to difficult balls and remain focused throughout the entire game. When that kind of effort builds up over several weeks, even a young athlete can reach his limit. That was precisely when Counsell decided to act. Instead of simply taking PCA out of the lineup and risking losing his bat at an important point in the season, the coaching staff found a different solution: keep the star involved offensively while reducing the defensive workload. The answer was to use Crow Armstrong as the designated hitter. That way, PCA could continue contributing offensively while receiving a form of strategic rest from the demands of playing the outfield. At the same time, the Cubs used newly acquired Tyrone Taylor to handle the defensive responsibilities. It may look like a simple lineup change, but when you consider the context, the decision reveals something much bigger about the coaching staff's planning. The Cubs are thinking long-term, because there would be little point in pushing Crow Armstrong through a brutal stretch of games and risking turning fatigue into a more serious physical problem. The season has reached a stage where every game matters, but protecting one of the most important pieces of the roster is also essential. PCA is not just another player. He has become one of the Chicago Cubs' biggest weapons. His defensive impact is enormous, his speed can change games, and his offensive performance has become increasingly important. That's why any sign of fatigue involving the young star naturally causes concern. But this time the news is much more reassuring than it initially appeared. The Cubs were not hiding a major injury. They were trying to protect their player. And there is another detail that could make Cubs fans even more excited. With the entire team getting Monday off, Crow Armstrong will have a valuable opportunity to recharge before returning to the field. The expectation is that he could be back in center field as early as Tuesday, when the Cubs face the Washington Nationals. If that happens, it will be exactly the scenario fans wanted to see. After a stretch of 17 consecutive games without a break, PCA gets a chance to breathe. And instead of waiting for the fatigue to turn into a problem, the coaching staff made a preventative decision. Now the mission is simple: rest, recover, and return to the field with all his energy. For the fans, the episode also serves as a reminder that baseball seasons are not won through individual performances alone. You have to manage the roster, understand the physical signs from your players, and make difficult decisions before small problems become major ones. And Counsell appears to have understood exactly that. The concern that began when Crow Armstrong appeared outside his usual position ended with an explanation that completely changes the tone of the story. It wasn't a major injury. It was fatigue. It wasn't an indefinite absence. It was protection. And it wasn't a sign that PCA was disappearing from the field. It was an attempt to make sure he remains there when the games really begin to take their toll. Now, with Monday's day off and the possibility of a return to center field on Tuesday against the Nationals, Cubs fans can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Because the player Chicago most wants to see flying around the outfield appears to be doing nothing more than recharging his batteries. And if Crow Armstrong returns rested, healthy, and with all of his explosiveness, the message to the rest of the National League could be frightening. The Cubs aren't just trying to survive the marathon. They're preparing their biggest weapons for the final stretch. The question now is a different one. After this strategic rest, will PCA come back even stronger? What do you think, Cubs fan? Yes or no? Leave your answer in the comments and tell me why you feel that way. I love following the opinions of Cubs fans. And if you want to always stay one step ahead of the biggest news, subscribe to the channel.